Hey now, welcome to Lone Star Mini Restorations. Today's episode is about the rear subframe trunnions. Alright, so I'm feeling about like Kevin right now with Gentleman's Motor Racing Team because I've made my very first mini tool and I'm kind of proud of it. I have looked everywhere. I've looked online, I've looked for videos, I've tried to find some tool that would help me with the rear subframe, the trunnions. I couldn't find anything, so if a tool exists, I'm oblivious, and so I made my own. However, so what drove me to this is when I was fitting my the rear subframe mount, basically the heel board and the rear subframe, I had to scratch my head a little bit. In fact, I had to make a telephone call or a WhatsApp message because all of a sudden, when I put my Magnum panel in with the new floor panel, while the fitment was off, the bolt holes for the subframe were perfect. And so I had that in my head, right? So when I took the Magnum panel off and I put the new Heritage heel board on, the fitment was beautiful. However, the subframe mount holes were off. And I'll pop up a picture up here. Basically, it was off by 1/3 of a hole. And I was like, all right, I know the floorboard is really made for the newer minis, the 1990 minis. So I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe there's a difference in the subframe. Well, that amount of distance was not, I don't think that warranted a new subframe. So I was like, what in the world? I was just scratching my head. Well, then Mr. Dave, former Dave Jag, basically and kindly, without slapping me across the face, kindly said, you know, Randy, dude, when you get new bushes for your trunnions, you're going to have to adjust that subframe and adjust that anyways. And I was like, oh, of course, right? Because my bushes on my trunnion are just, not only were they solid frozen, well, that's bad, especially here in Texas. They were locked tight down, right? I couldn't budge them. Well, I forgot that, oh yeah, I'm going to be putting new bushes in there. Well, so But what I also found, so when I started messing with this thing, and I got frustrated because I couldn't even twist it, I couldn't even turn it off, I Googled, right? I did what most people out there do. I Googled, I was looking for videos. I was like, all right, is there a video out there for frozen trunnions? I couldn't find one. There's probably something out there somewhere, but I couldn't find one. I did find a few forums where they talked about it, and those guys basically cut the head off of that pin, and then they were able to push or pull the rest of the bolt, the stud out. I didn't want to do that, even though I'm probably replacing it now. I didn't want to do that. I figured, all right, there's got to be a better way. So I have spent the last couple days, I've used a PB Blaster. Fantastic. This has worked a charm. Literally, I had a C-clamp on this trunnion, and I had a pry bar, and I could barely move it. Seriously, barely move it. And so I was like, what in the world? So over the last couple of days, I've been using PB Blaster, basically just spraying the thread, and it has done the trick, and I'll show you. But I've learned a few things. Remember, I'm the new guy. I've got to learn everything. So I'm going to bring you down here, and I'll show you what I've learned. So the first thing that I learned when I was looking at the subframe, I noticed that this divot was in here. Well, from the other side, and I'll pop up a picture, from this back side, it looked like that divot was pressing into the pin. And I thought, okay, well maybe that's preventing, maybe it's putting pressure on the pin and that's why I can't pull it out. Thankfully I have another Mini, and I went and studied the other Mini, and I've learned that this divot is part of the subframe. Basically the radius arm, this is clearance for the radius arm. So I'm thinking, okay, good there. But the bolt, the dadgum bolt, still won't come out. So while I was, while the threads were spraying down and hopefully releasing a lot of the rust or gunk or whatever the heck was keeping it frozen, I made a tool. Now, honestly, at first when I started making it, I didn't know if it was going to be beneficial pre or post or during or whatever. The very first one I made broke. And the reason being is I put the stud only on one side, and it was too long when I tested it. Well, because it was too long, that was a longer moment and all that force. And in the bit that I used, the two bits, one of them just sheared in half. I was like, all right, well, so then I got a little bit smarter. I took those bolts out. I ground them down this side. I ground it down, so now it's not noticed, but I used the other side. And this time I was smarter. I went through the bolt. The drill bit that I'm using here goes all the way through, and I only welded it on one side. Okay, the welding's pretty bad, if you can see that. The other side, however, I left clean. That's the side that I'm going to be using. And let me tell you, this thing works beautifully, especially now that the PB Blaster has done its job in releasing. So now, when I literally was using a pry bar to turn this thing, it would not turn. No joke. But now watch. All right, so now when this bad boy fits beautifully. So there it is fitting. And because of the PB Blaster, I was able to loosen this up. I did have a little bit of pressure the first go. In fact, I haven't totally released the other one, so I'll film that. But this guy will now come out. Look at that. I got it. And this tool, I believe, will help me when I go to install it. So I think this is going to be beneficial. And real quick, the reason I'm replacing these machined housing for the trunnion is, look at this. Somebody, and I'll pop up another picture, but somebody who owned this car in the past, or maybe not the owner, maybe a mechanic shop, I don't know who, but you can see this has an angle on it now. In fact, they didn't clean it up. Not only did they cut this off at an angle, but they left part of it. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but look at that. You see the slice in the middle. So the fact that it's at an angle, now when the bolt goes through, it's not going to sit flush. So now I will be replacing, I'm just going to replace the whole kit. The whole kit and caboodle, absolutely. But I got it out. It was frozen, and my tool and the PB Blaster helped me, so I'm pleased. Okay, again, this video is really about unfreezing or getting out a frozen trunnion. It's very basic, I get that, but there was no help out there really to do this. So just maybe this might help somebody else. And if you need a tool, you can make one. If I can, you can. I don't know what other people use. I would love to know how you people have put the pins in there and held the nut and without it spinning, you know, tighten down the nut and keep that without spinning. I would love to know. But yeah, so Kevin Richardson, and actually the one who gave me the idea was Dave, but I felt like Kevin making a tool. But Dave gave me the idea to do this. Maybe he's made one, I'm not sure. But that's it for now. Until later, all right, bye just now.